Welcome back, everybody. I've got all the parts laid out for the front suspension on the 442. Let's go through everything real quick. So from UMI Performance, you've got the upper and lower control arms, upper, lower, and they also have a big brake conversion kit. You get 2 of these Willwood hubs along with the hardware to put the brakes on. Gives you all the bolts. I've got a set of strange 1/2 inch by 20 2-inch long wheel studs for the hubs. The 2 original G-body spindles that I have cut the ears off of where the old caliper would mount in order to mount the new bracket, which then mounts the new brakes. Over wheel bearing grease, all the wheel bearings and everything for the hubs, and QA1 coilover shocks, single adjustable, because I don't know, I'm not a super racer, and right now I think single is all I need for the moment, and they're cheaper, so it's good for me. And comes with the kit came with springs, and I bought a set of the roller shims to cut down on some of the wear, and of course all the parts for those too. And bought a tube of the Permatex NICs because QA1 is emphatic about using that on the body of this, and they have like 5 warnings and a sticker on it, and they're seriously want you to use that stuff or it's going to void your warranty. Also got a set of the spring isolators that go up in the frame, and those things are like Bigfoot, kinda. You hear about them, but you can never find it. And it took a little bit of searching to actually, you search for isolators, and you get the bottom ones all day long, but nothing for the top. And on Summit, they actually show that these fit, but you go to anywhere else to buy them, and they say, no, they don't fit your car. But I've checked them, and yes, they do. So you'll see those when we go in. Anyway, so got everything laid out. This is what's going on today. Step 1, I already got one caliper over in the shed hanging up, so I got to go put this one with it. And since the upper and lower control arms are nice, shiny, powder-coated black, I am going to paint these gloss black as well so they match with the rest of the components. So that's what we're doing right now. Let me get out to the shed and I'll show you how I'm doing it. So here we are out in the shed. I try to paint out here as much as I can. The little woman hates the smell of sprayed paint, so I try to keep it out of the garage so it doesn't waft into the house and bother her. So taking both of the spindles and taped up the spindle part here where the hub's going to go, so that stays clean, and just use mechanics wire, and literally it's just wired right up into the rafters. Got both of them hanging, perfect spot. I'm going to lay down a couple of coats of primer and then a couple of coats of gloss black, and then I think they'll be ready to go, and then just a matter of drying, and then it's on to slamming this stuff on the car. So it's a can of Krylon primer, and I got another can of Krylon gloss black. It says it's rust tough. Let's see. Right? I'm going to go for 2 medium coats of the primer. I know I got full coverage. Then we'll go with probably 3 coats of the black, maybe more, just so I know I've got a really good layer of paint on it, be a little bit more chip resistant. Okay, I'll do the second one. We'll let that hang. I'm going to do one more medium coat of the primer, and then we'll get on to black paint. Alright, so I've got my 2 medium coats of primer on. Got full coverage, looks really good. So now I'm going to move on to the gloss black. And what I'm doing here is multiple coats. I'm going to do quite a few of them because I want to build the mill strength up, the mill thickness up on the paint. So I'm doing probably light coats at first, not even looking for full coverage. I'm going to do light coat after light coat, about 15 minutes apart until I've got coverage. You can't see any more of the primer through the paint. And then I'll probably do like 2 or 3 more medium coats. Because what I'm looking for at this point is to build the thickness of the paint up. You can actually get really good results from like a rattle can paint. The problem is guys don't usually put the time in. And you can't just put on 1 or 2 coats or 1 fat coat, get coverage, and you're done. Because then there's just not enough paint on there. It's too easy to chip. Sometimes you can get fade and rust through. So you just need to build the paint up to a thickness where it has a little bit of strength to it. So that's what I'm doing right now. And that's it. Just light coat, and then from this point on, we just do coat after coat until it's full coverage, and it's actually nice, thick, sturdy paint. So I got the calipers drying after the paint, and I'm going to move on to a couple other things we need to do before we can actually get down to putting everything in, and that's the Willwood hubs. So you need to get these studs in and torque down. I went to the website and looked at the hubs, and what they recommended was 77 foot-pounds. So that's what I want to use. So get my Loctite red, and let's get the threads coated. I've already done 3 of them, and I've done the other hub, because how many times do you need to see something get torqued down? Not much. So let's get a good amount on here, and then we're going to thread these in. Make sure the threads are good and coated. So the Loctite red is going to hold these things in place. They're not going to go anywhere once that's done. And I made this mount in order to be able to torque these things down. I wanted something that wasn't going to mar the new hubs I just got. So I just got a piece of wood, drilled a hole in it, and use that to mount the hub. And I'll use just a piece of cardboard or something to place in between this one stud. And then I use just a regular lug nut, and I actually secure it to the board from underneath. See if I can get that threaded on there. Alright, so that's tightened down. It's not going to mess the threads up. And that way this holds it in place, keeps it from rotating, and then now I can actually get to tightening these studs down. I got 2 left here. $77 foot-pounds. Paint pen. Alright, torque something. Best practice, mark the head of the bolt. That way you don't have a question later on. Did I torque that? Did I not torque that? I can't remember. So that's what it looks like. It's all done. Loctited in place. Those go back on the bench. So just a few more things left. Got to assemble the QA1 shocks and pack some wheel bearings, a couple little things, and then I want to lay everything out almost like an assembly line. So that way I can put the upper and lower control arms, get the shock in, all the hardware's there, bearings ready to go. Everything's good, so I can just go ahead and get right to it. So that's what's next. So moving on to the next thing. Okay, we're just about ready to start the installation for the upper and lower control arms and my shock. Just got to assemble the QA1 shock. So we'll go through, we'll do one side just so you see how that is. I've also got the rubber isolator. I had a hard time finding this. When you search online for the upper isolator, you just get a result for the bottom isolator. And I could not find anything on it. Summit was the only place that said that this actually fits. You go anywhere else and it says that this does not fit on a G-body, my year. But it does work and it does fit. And it is a Moog part number K160044. So if you're looking for that, that's the part you're going to need. So this is going to go on the top part of the spring, and then that is going to go up into the metal cup of the frame where the spring seats. And then the rest will go onto the shock body here. So what I like to do is to keep from having to fight the isolator and make sure that it fits on okay. I just take it and actually use a little bit of electrical tape, and I just tape it right to the spring. It's not going to hurt anything. You just want this thing to have metal on, keep it from having metal on metal contact, and you want the isolator to actually stay in place when you're installing it, and not having to fight the shock, fight the isolator, fight gravity, whatever else. So it's easier just to get this thing on. Eventually the tape will either wear off or it'll stay there, but it doesn't matter. What you want is that isolator firmly seated. So now I can put it up in there. This isn't going anywhere. Put that off to the side. So now what we got to do is assemble the two locking rings that go onto the body of the shock. Now in the instruction manual, Permatex anti-seize is listed in there 6 times on almost every step of the instructions. And when you get the shock, there is a warning sticker on the body of the shock, warning, use Permatex anti-seize. So I think they're serious about you wanting to use anti-seize on this. Because basically what will happen is, if you don't do it and these threads on the body of the shock housing here gets galled, they're going to tell you you're out of luck if they find out that you didn't use it. So go ahead and use this stuff. And they say Permatex, that's exactly what I bought. I'm not, in case something goes wrong, I'm not giving them any opportunity to tell me I did something improperly. So you've got these 2 lock rings that go on. Bottom one goes on first, and then this one goes on, and the spring seats in this cup. And the bottom one, basically once you get your ride height set, you lock these 2 together and this keeps it in place. So if you look at the first ring, there's actually a small shoulder on it. That shoulder goes up. So when it goes onto the shock, someone's already saying, you didn't put the Permatex on. Bear with me, because that's what I'm going to do. But let me get this thing down into place. Alright, so there's the first one on. Second one goes on, cup up, because that's where the spring is going to seat. And do the same thing. Run that down until they're together. Now, what I like to do is I give myself enough room. I know exactly how thick this is, because they want you to run these down to the very bottom of the housing. And you're going to need to give yourself enough room, because you're going to have to compress the spring a little bit in order to get this up in here and into the lower control arm. So what I do is I just have this thing about halfway down the body, and then I'll take my Permatex and I'll actually cover the bottom part. And I have this thing up far enough to where I can run it down past what I've already spread some of the anti-seize on. So don't be afraid, as long as you don't get this all over yourself, It's going to get everywhere a little bit, so don't be afraid of it. Just get it on there as best you can. I like to coat the threads really well. Make sure that I've got good seating in the grooves with this stuff, and then that way when I run the spring down onto it, they're going to be well coated. All right, so then now I can run these down onto the Permatex, and it's going to be down far enough, and you're going to make a mess, so just deal with it. So that's down almost right to the bottom of the housing, and then I run the other one down to it, and then now what I have is you can actually see there's some Permatex on the threads in the middle, and you're going to make a mess. Have a towel ready to go. This is going to be a little messy. You can clean up the couple rings after you're done. So now what I do is, because I don't know how much adjustment I'm going to have, and then try getting this stuff in between the spring to coat this later, you're going to make an ungodly mess. So go about halfway up from where it's seated. Cover the rest, and then I'm going to work this down into the threads all the way to where I've got the joint coverage from what I put on the bottom. That way, once it's in the car, if the ride height is too low, I can adjust this up. Threads are already covered. No issues with voiding my warranty. No issues with galling the shock, because that's really what this is about. This isn't about so much CYA is. No one wants to put this on and be in the middle of an adjustment, and then the lock ring seizes to the body of the shock, and then you've got to fight the whole thing back out again. So now we've got that good and covered. I went ahead and bought the 3-piece thrush washer set. So basically what this is, it's when you get the shock, it comes with one of these rings, and it seats over the cup. The extra kit, you actually get a nice roller bearing that goes in between, and then another washer. So what happens is these three are sandwiched together, a roller bearing in the middle. When you're turning the shot to make your adjustment, this gives this bottom lock ring something to rotate on, instead of just kind of like cranking up the spring, because it's not going to rotate because it's wedged under pressure at the top. So then you're just going to grind this thing into the bottom of the spring. So instead of digging it into the spring, you've got something to rotate it on. So what they want, and what I do, is this is where it's going to sit. So I'm going to coat this, and then I'm going to put on, and you're making a mess. There's just no way around it. I hate making a mess, but what are you going to do? So then your first washer goes on, and then I coat the top of the washer because it says to coat the roller bearing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it like this. So now that's on, and then basically you're making a disgusting peanut butter and jelly sandwich here. So you're putting everything together, making sure everything is nice and coated, because the last thing you want to do is have any type of metal on metal situation, and again void the warranty, because they are no joke serious when they mean that they want you to put Permatex on this. So there you go. It's messy. We're going to clean it up after it goes in the vehicle. Once I put my hands on it 6 different times and gotten everything adjusted, then we can go back and we'll clean some of this up and make it look pretty. But right now, what we want to do is make sure that this is going to go on, and it's going to have a problem-free installation. So now, shock's ready. Upper lower control arms are ready. Got my spindles painted. Now we go install it on the car.